Good morning and welcome. My name is Tom Patzelt, and I'm honored to lead this panel of experts this morning. And we're going to try to provide you insights on market trends and the implications for building and investing in MedTech companies in 2022 and beyond. By way of introduction, I am a commercial consultant who helps startups and CEO founders quickly and efficiently find market traction for their MedTech products. I have over 30 years of operational experience with multinationals and high-growth startups, and I've been fortunate to be involved with 2 startups that received acquisition offers. And as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the United States. And so with that, I will allow the panel to introduce. So Philip, would you like to go?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Farrugia. I'm a mechanical engineer by profession, and I'm also an academic at the University of Malta, the Department of Industrial and Manufacturing Engineering. And for the last 8 years, I have been actively involved in projects, research projects in collaboration with industry in order to develop innovative product service systems in the healthcare sector.
Good morning. My name is Satu Peltonen. I'm from Finland, by the way. And for the last 10-15 years, my expertise has been how to develop medical technology, biomedical technology, health technology, everything that goes under this umbrella, how to develop them into international markets and what kind of things you have to consider through the process.
Hi, good morning. My name is Grech. I'm a scientist by profession, and I work with Malta Enterprise here in Malta. I work in the investment promotion unit, and our job essentially is to attract and support foreign companies to invest and set up in Malta. And I focus mostly on the life sciences sector, which is why I am on this panel today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm 𝐂𝐞𝐝. I'm a biomedical engineer, and I provide regulatory affairs consultancy specifically on medical devices and IVDs. And this is why I founded Specculo Limited, to provide these services to manufacturers who want to get their CE mark.
Okay, great. So what we've done is we've put together a series of questions that we feel are top of mind for people who are interested in this subject. So the first question is, what are the major global trends that are shaping MedTech and software as a medical device opportunities, and some of the implications around that? So Jackie, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Especially with the pandemic, there has been a lot of exciting and different trends happening in the MedTech sector, and there's been a lot of a boost in the consumer adoption of lots of innovative technologies. And it's interesting because the medical space really needed to adapt to these requirements now from their consumers and their customers. And I chose a few sectors to highlight that also we think Malta, is very best positioned to support these sectors, and we're seeing companies working in these sectors. For example, well, the obvious is artificial intelligence, which I know we're going to speak about later, so I won't go into detail. But of course, it has made a big difference in medical diagnostics. Medical robots being used in surgeries. Venture capitalists are investing a lot in this area. There's been a really growing trend here. Biometric devices and wearables like your smartwatch. People are more aware of tracking their health, and MedTech companies are capitalizing on that, providing wearables to help track certain health data for their own, obviously, data collection, and to provide a better service to their consumers. And also VR, virtual reality, being used in healthcare applications, like in medical training being done from all over the world, patient treatment, disease awareness. So it's a very exciting time, I think, for the MedTech world.
Yes. To continue off on what Jackie mentioned, before the pandemic, we developed a new product service system for children with developmental language disorders. And the system comprised of a medical device, a therapeutic device, an application for SLPs in order to monitor the progress that the children are doing between one session and another. And before the pandemic, there was sort of reluctance from the speech-language pathologists in order to carry out the therapy remotely, because this ecosystem was intended to be utilized both in a clinical setting and also at home. So before the pandemic, speech-language pathologists were a bit skeptical about doing this remote therapy. However, when we evaluated the approach after the pandemic, and also since the speech-language pathologists experienced the need to carry out remote therapy, they changed the perception. So I strongly agree with what Jackie mentioned, that the pandemic sort of shifted a bit the trend in certain areas in the medical health sector.
Very true. Okay, so our next question is how are technological advances bringing new capabilities to address unmet needs and enhance the speed of innovation? And Kenneth, perhaps you'd like to.
I mean, as everyone probably expected, we're going to talk about AI on this panel. And AI has, I mean, it is advancing, you know, not incrementally, but, you know, it's taking leaps. And this, it does advance the technology, especially in the MedTech sphere, in that, for example, computer-aided diagnostics are becoming, you know, more accurate. And they, you know, where before it was a bit of a sci-fi thing of, you know, we have an image and, oh, it's detecting certain diseases. Now it's actually quite accurate. Whilst the uptake in the developed world might be a bit like, you know, just a second pair of eyes, this sort of technology is extremely useful in developing countries where they do not have the resources, they don't have the radiologist at hand or a specialist to detect certain things. So that's number one. That's an incredible opportunity which we're seeing with AI. Another sector where AI comes in is actually, for example, when there are some software available where the clinician would actually be putting in patient history, for example, and the AI or software, really part of it is going to be detecting these keywords and saying, okay, looks like this patient might have this particular condition. We recommend this treatment, for example, and the clinician can then take that into account. Apart from that, something which is becoming really, really like interesting is personalized medicine, so precision medicine, where the actual treatment is targeted to a patient. So, for example, these in vitro diagnostics, what they do is they take a sample, or they use a sample from a patient, from a tumor, for example, and the treatment is precisely provided for that particular patient specifically. And we also see this in something called companion diagnostics, which are devices which accompany drugs, and to say, so they take a sample from the patient, and they say whether that drug is compatible. And the thing is, with advances in technology and even literature on these sort of subjects, then it's becoming even more precise. Something sticking to sort of precision medicine is also the growth of 3D printed patient-matched devices. So 3D printing technologies are, I mean, they're getting better. They're actually being used in the medical sphere. And for example, I've come across a few of our clients. They do, for example, they take a DICOM, a medical image, for example, from a CT scan, and if, let's say, someone has a head fracture, their software actually, it creates the design of the implant. It's 3D printed and then sent to the hospital to be implanted. And this is all relatively quick. So that's definitely incredible. And you mentioned something on virtual reality, and also this is something we're seeing, a lot. There's a lot of hype, obviously, but then there's actually the application. So like you mentioned training, for example. That's a fantastic opportunity. You have someone actually in the theater, in the surgical theater room, they're sort of getting on top of the nerves maybe on this thing, and learning new techniques. And so as we see advances in these technologies, we're going to see even more interesting medical devices coming out of there and actually being used by everyone. So I don't know if anyone else wants to.
mentioned, one of the projects that we currently have, this is Horizon 2020 project. We have a consortium of 14 partners, and we are trying to develop this VR platform for rehabilitation. So we have three kinds of patients, target users, musculoskeletal injured patients. We have also post-stroke patients and dystonic children. And what we are trying to do is, through 3D printing, we are scanning the upper limb of the patient. Once we have the CAD model, the CAD data, the designer can develop straps, we are calling them straps, for a controller, okay, VR controller. So the patients can wear this controller, even unassisted, and they can be immersed in a VR environment to rehab themselves. So I strongly agree that VR and 3D printing are also two technologies which are currently being used in the medical sector.
You're reminding me actually, because and I know you're also working on a similar project, which is since nowadays everyone has maybe a tablet, a smartphone, since there's sort of this proliferation of apps. There are also these smart apps which actually can be used, let's say, by children or even adults, which would be games, a sort of a gamified app, and would be able to diagnose, for example, a child with a particular condition such as ADHD or autism. And this is, I mean, it's fantastic because, they wouldn't know what's going on, but it would be alerting the clinician as to a particular condition. Or even, for example, depression in older people. Let's say they have a chatbot, which is powered by AI, and when there are certain keywords, it will be like, okay, this particular patient might be suffering from, depression, or might have, suicidal thoughts, for example, and then it alerts someone, their carer, for example. So.
It's fascinating. It ties in well with our next question, which is what are the important factors to consider when building successful go-to-market strategies? And I'll start on this. I believe there's two critical times in the development of a startup organization in terms of developing products for the market. The first is after the prototyping stage and prior to a massive investment in the product development, clinical trials, et cetera. And this is the time at which you say, okay, I've built this. What is going to be the application for this product? In other words, where will it be, who will value this, and how will it differentiate itself? And one of the things that companies can do at this point is to make sure that they go beyond talking to thought leaders and that they talk to the people that they anticipate will be the actual users of the product. And the opportunity at this point is, and we were talking about this morning with Philip, it's just like its best engineering design practices is to well understand exactly who the user is, what the requirements are, and also to discover new requirements by talking to them in terms of product usability, et cetera. And so this is something that as the cost of bringing products to market goes up, these decisions become more and more critical. One of the great aspects of understanding this well at this point is that when you go to raise funds, you can share this information and say, look, I haven't just imagined this. I've actually talked to the people that I intend to sell this product to, and this is the feedback they've gotten. And so they're very enthusiastic about using it for this reason. So I think that's just because if you make a mistake at that point, you now are in a position of how do you change your product development and the costs, getting through regulatory, all that time. I think the second critical time frame is between the time at which you get market approval, prior to market approval. And so at this point you say, okay, I know the product, I know where I'm going to bring it, but now you have to do the work to make sure you understand exactly who the users will be and why they will buy the product. And so this is where you want to do research based on the product with actual users and those involved in the purchase decision. And by at this point understanding that very well, then you can develop your go-to-market plans, which will include your commercial, your commercial strategy, your distribution strategy, as well as communication strategy. So to make sure that you position your product in the right way so that when you go to market, you can quickly and efficiently find market traction. Investors today have much higher demands. This is the challenge of MedTech because investors have higher demands and yet we have more headwinds that we have to fight our way through. So it's a challenging time and you really don't have time to go to market and then find who is going to be the user. You have to know so that you can efficiently and successfully gain traction there. So any other thoughts from the panel on this topic?
Something that I had on my topic. So first of all, I have been working or been seeing a lot of different kind of innovations. Some are oriented more for general, public patients, and then there are some emerging and breakthrough technology that are kind of concentrated on a specific treatment. And and in this case, I often get the question, do you have like a ready-made balloon that kind of gives us the steps to the go-to-market and how do we get our market adaptation? And I can always say, oh, no, that's not going to work, never ever, because every case is one and unique. So first of all, the more complex your medical technology is, the more earlier you have to involve all the stakeholders and all the end users. You have to take into consideration the patient-centric development. You have to take into consideration human factors engineering, because this is kind of the points where you know that how well your product is going to be adapted into the market, who are your end users, and also the main point is going to make sure that what you are developing is patient safety, because that's one of the main reasons you have to always have to consider. And second thing is that there are a lot of barriers also. And the one thing is, the users, especially if they are like medical professionals, they already have their own treatment procedures. They are kind of very fond of them, what they have been doing until now. Okay, so now you bring a new technology, you have breakthrough technology, okay, this is the one-of-a-kind treatment we can use to, you don't have something like this on the market before. So you have a natural pull into that. But how do you convince the doctors who are going to use this in the end that, okay, this is going to work better than what you have already? Yes. Okay, and then the second point is always the reinforcement strategy that many people usually kind of like, oh, well, it's going to come. But basically you have to incorporate it into your regulatory strategy, because it's also going to tell you how much you're going to earn from this, how much money you get. And there are a lot of legislations, especially different social security systems, and also in insurance. It differs from country to country. And usually in this point, when you start to do your preclinical designs, when you go to clinical studies, then you kind of have to already take a little bit into consideration, okay, how much actually is this going to bring in this target country, yes, so to speak. And then, of course, if we take as an example, Europe, Japan, or China, you have considerations like, okay, what are the quality systems? What do they actually expect that you have to fulfill, that you get your product onto those markets? And there's a lot of considerations. And the earlier you start, the earlier you pinpoint, okay, what are my first markets? Then the easier it is to get your first customers for that, the pull into the market.
Yes. Those are excellent points. One of the things I think a way to look at this at a high level is that and I would say being in the United States has been sort of slower to adapt to the cost controls, and it's where payers have a much bigger role in the process. But really what it's come down to is, 30 years ago, you could invent a product, and if clinically it worked, you could sell it. I mean, it was pretty much it. And usually a physician would say, yes, I want to use this, and that would be it. But today now you have many more people involved in the process for utilization and purchase. And so what this, as Satu just pointed out, it's incumbent upon people to, at that very early stage, to make sure you understand who those people are. And I think another important consideration is early stage companies get very focused on market access and getting to market, and rightfully so. It's very important. Investors want to see that. They want to see that you have a plan for that. But once you hire a distribution organization, someone to actually go sell the product, now they have to worry about market adoption. And the only thing the investors are going to talk about at that point is, well, what is your repeat purchase rate? What is your stickiness of your product in the market? These are the things they want to hear. And so, to be sure that you're going to be able to do that, you have to very well understand all the players involved and design a strategy to demonstrate that value. And so even back your clinical trials, you should be thinking about market adoption, not just about market access. Because if you wait, now you're going to delay your market adoption by multiple years as you complete the clinical trials. So many different considerations. It's simply put, the complexity of the people who are buying has gone up, and therefore the sophistication of the go-to-market planning must go up in a commensurate way.
Also, the more complex that the design is, the usual strategy is to build some kind of global basic structure that you can actually then kind of localize to the different target areas, because end users everywhere are very different. And there you usually have to consider also like the cross-national and cultural implementations, like how do you make sure that the people here use it in the same way? But sometimes it could be something like, okay, you have a specific example, some specific color that kind of used differently in different countries, and that could also maybe make a very big, impact on how is this received in this specific area. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have one final question to consider, and of course, this is our local question. So how is the Maltese MedTech industry adapting to these trends? And Philip,
Thank you. From my experience collaborating with industry in the past 8 years, I have seen that, first of all, the Maltese industry has a lot of expertise when it comes to, for example, injection molding, and also recently 3D printing. When it comes to injection molding, for example, once we had a project in which we jointly developed a very small part for the endoscope, a very tiny part. Usually it was manufactured using 2 separate processes, but we managed to produce it in one process, hence reducing the costs. So the expertise is there. As I mentioned, from the Horizon 2020 project that we currently have, apart from the manufacturing sector, we are also collaborating with the VR sector, especially when it comes to the serious games. In fact, we have 2 local companies. One is a startup with whom we are collaborating to develop this serious game for XR, AR and VR. These collaborations were not possible if we didn't have the funding from the Malta Council for Science and Technology. And if there are any SME representatives here in Malta who would like to start off their own product and research, I strongly suggest that these funds are tapped, because they provide a lot of opportunities to build on the R&D competences of a company. Also, there is the Horizon Europe program, which local companies can also tap. So I strongly encourage that if there are any SME representatives, you sort of tap these funds, because they tend to improve your competences and also your profile when it comes to the medical sector.
Okay, great. Jackie, as our other Maltese representative, would you care to add?
I may add, I think Malta will have a lot of local strengths, that we've built over the years that makes us well positioned to support development of the MedTech sector here. We have lots of surgeons and clinicians that are very excited to participate in research, as we have here Professor Philip, who is from the University of Malta, and there are other academics as well who are very excited to participate in research. We have one centralized hospital that is English speaking. All our patient records are in English. All patients go through the centralized hospital here in Malta, so you don't have loss of data. We have a very big data pool of history. And we're working hard as Malta Enterprise to continue supporting the MedTech sector. We're trying to attract a CRO to help with clinical trials. We are assisting in setting up a notified body here that will help with the MDR, with the Medical Director Regulation. I'm looking at Kenneth because I know this is a pain point. And of course, we have lots of incentives and financial schemes at Malta Enterprise, but I'm very aware of the time, so I won't go into detail. But we are here, we have a booth downstairs, and anyone who's interested in more information about the financial incentives that we offer to support companies are very welcome to visit us. Myself and my colleagues will be there to guide you.
Okay, so I see our time is up, but the panel will be outside if anybody wants to speak with any of us about any specifics. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you to our hosts for the wonderful time that we're enjoying in Malta.